What's up, everybody? I've got a couple of topics. I guess this is kind of like a news video that I want to talk about today. But first, before we get into it, I got to plug the free webcam tournament, the casual confrontation, Saturday, May 16th. That's basically a week away now. That's next weekend. I'm going to have some new faces on commentary. Pippa and Rebby Lynn should be there. Jordan Lemons, I believe, is going to show up. So hopefully we get a good turnout. It's going to be a stress-free environment. It's just going to be structured universes. There's no prizes. There's nothing to sweat over. Just show up, play some webcam games, and have a good time. What does have some prizing though is the regional warm-up tournament, 528. That's a couple weeks from now. It's the Thursday before the Las Vegas regional. This is going to be a Many Realms event, so you can get your tickets at bookwin.com/Many Realms. More boxes. I don't know exactly what the pricing is going to be, because the more entrants there are, the more booster boxes there will be for pricing. So $10 entry starts at 2 p.m. So that way, if your flight comes in the morning, you can go get checked in, stuff like that. I don't know exactly what the structure will be. I want to say it'll probably be Swiss rounds and then, final standings, because that's just the box tournaments I've done for Star Wars Unlimited in Vegas, and like other box tournaments for other games. Typically, they're not trying to do like a full top cut, and they're here sort of on vacation, on a trip. So, go check that out. They have free shipping on orders of $125. Worldwide shipping too. So for our UK players, if you're watching this might be a place you can get some Universes cards. So come check it out. But the main topic, the main elephant in the room to address, is the ban and Errata update. I wanted to take a day or two to really kind of process through it, because I think going into this ban list, this is exactly what I expected to get, was just Titan of Terror. I expected him to get hit hard enough that he's not a super meta relevant threat. I do still think you can play this character once per turn, and first form on the form is a little tough, but I think they like to be tougher on once they're willing to make a decision. I think the worst thing that can happen typically is the deck remain popular. If it feels like the errata didn't do anything, if it didn't do enough, people get pretty salty too. And it's not like we haven't seen, the usually at day one or day zero errata will just be like a more functional errata, and those characters can still pop up, like the Reiners and the Bertholts of the world. But yeah, this one, the closer we got to this ban list, the more I wanted something to happen to the Reiner deck. I do think the Reiner deck's kind of sweet. I do think it's kind of playing in a different way. And I will say that the transformed side, the really hard control side of it that you can do on both sides, the fact that it's defensive and offensive, does appeal to me as a player. So there was definitely some bias there. But in testing, it feels like a fever dream combo deck that when it combos off, it just sort of shuts normal universes down. The angles that I've seen to attack this deck are to play things like Harness Undeath, where you can resolve a lot of damage with one or two control checks. Take advantage of the fact that they don't typically hold a lot of cards, so the Echo can wear out even one or two low blocks. Granted, United Front also means that trying to zone scan them is not a great strategy. But yeah, it's just the Reiner deck. It doesn't have too many cards that when you play it, it just wins the game. And even when it transforms, it doesn't just win the game, but it's pretty close. So I definitely think it's obviously on the watch list. I don't think that it's a popular enough character, and I don't think the deck is streamlined enough to catch on mass popularity. That's, I guess, my cope take. The big thing with Titan of Terror and with a lot of quote unquote broken cards, I think if a card's gotten banned, I think we can agree it's broken. Can we at least attempt to, handshake on that? So, like Sweeping Daggers, as much as I liked it and think it could have been unbanned, which is a whole nother discussion where you could have unbanning cards to maybe fit better into the metagame to make, because realistically, I don't think the goal should be people don't play Titan of Terror anymore. realistically, the goal should be that like not everyone feels compelled to play Titan of Terror because they can't find something that is regularly beating it. And I don't know if the people in testing were regularly beating Titan of Terror with the Reiner decks, but you got to imagine they were, you know. So and Reiner had a decent showing. Reiner had like a better showing than a lot of characters in our game. So I can understand why he's on the watch list. But so Titan of Terror is the kind of deck that like people figured out pretty quickly what to do with it. It felt very difficult to try and find something that, you know, again, attacks its you know, targets its weaknesses, which is typically just the fact that it doesn't do anything on your turn. You know, it maybe gets a power token for blocking, which isn't nothing, but isn't really something to complain about. So the the decks that play themselves for you is probably the worst take, but are easier to play, which I also don't like saying that because usually, in my opinion, the easiest games of universes are when my opponent makes it easy for me. You know, people who can play bad decks but play very conservatively or play, you know, around their outs and things like that can make it very difficult for you. So, uh, the Godzilla Titan of Terror decks could choose to add a bunch of complexity checks on the water symbol and the earth symbol. I don't think the fire symbol has that capacity, but you know, you could tech your deck in a way. So yeah, the Godzilla Titan of Terror decks that were popular though, that I played though, it's very much a volume deck. You know, you try to accrue as much advantage as you can out of your free stuff. Your free stuff begets more free stuff, and then eventually your opponent feels compelled to race you. And a deck that gets to play a card for free every turn, anywhere in the string that they can or need to, is probably going to win most races. And the Reiner deck is also really good at making you feel like you're running out of time. It makes it feel like no matter how big your stage gets, you know, it's a little hopeless. Um, but I do think that building out wide and just getting to a point where you can raw block or playing characters that can block, with the necessary amount of card advantage to block Thunder Spear lines, you know, might be the. I'm getting off on a tangent. The point I was trying to make is Titan of Terror was sort of centralizing. You know, it was the kind of thing where why do all this work when you could just play Titan of Terror? I don't think Reiner. I don't think the Reiner deck is kind of like that. It's pretty similar in the sense that you can teach the average person, you know, to just play greedily to transform, and then once you've transformed, it's pretty hard to lose. You know, you it's kind of like Deku, where like that first turn where you transform, you're probably the weakest you're ever gonna be. You know, and having like even just brick turns where you build and you add more pieces to your stage that you can use to commit more pieces from your rival stage. Uh, you know, kind of exacerbates the issue. But I don't know. I've played a decent amount of Reiner games. I played a lot more into it. I played a lot more into it. And I haven't found like, you know, things that are very, you know, very good silver bullets to it or anything like that. Like I don't really feel like I have a good angle against it, but there is interaction for it. It's just one of those things where you get into the battle of okay, well, how many momentum hate pieces do you have versus how much can I generate versus how many, you know, did you draw the action cancel, right? But so at the end of the day, it's translating the battle of universes away from the numbers on the cards initially to the pieces of, you know, to the sort of chess pieces that you have in play on the chessboard. And I don't hate that style of gameplay. It does just mean that it feels like you have to be playing very specific cards to interact with very specific parts of the game that you probably didn't have to before. I didn't want to play Benimaru for an LC that I was really down. Like I felt like Benimaru into Titan of Terror was like not terrible until all of the Titan of Terrors were playing 4 Radiant Visage, you know, which makes sense because you want to fill up your discard pile. But since they were so willing to play it, even not as a specific tech piece, it made playing like that deck specifically a bit harder. And so I don't expect there to be less Radiant Visage going around if people are teching for Reiner. Um, but yeah, the battle just becomes which, if you can attack the backup, but they got the power token, like, so be it. Being able to transform on the rival's turn, definitely makes it inky. Makes it a lot harder to decipher where to sort of attack this deck. And then, of course, people are like, well, just kill it, just deal the 30, same thing as Titan of Terror. And those are always the decks that sort of gatekeep the spicier, saucier decks, anyways, right? The decks that are already willing to just deal a bazillion damage to everything, because that's what wins every game, right? If you can reliably hit any character for 30 damage, there's very few decks you're not going to beat doing that. Um, Even the decks that have 34 health, they get one turn to backswing you, right? So uh, the idea that we just gotta draw a hand that does massive amounts of damage through breaker twos is less exciting to me than a game plan where I can, you know, tech my deck to deny what my rival wants to do. Because if you can prevent the Reiner from transforming, it's not a fun time. The Reiner deck on the front side just kind of letting you choose which foundation to flip and not being able to add any damage to Thunder Spear barrages or to throws. And if they do, it's via Badgie. And if they have Badgies out and they're not transformed, you get to use the Badgie back at them. That, like, these are more interesting games than I ever had against Titan of Terror. So um, as much as I do feel like the Reiner deck is absolutely miserable to play against once it transforms and it causes like a high stakes, high anxiety, typically fast paced game because of how fast it can transform, I like the style of gameplay that we're going for. So I do think the Reiner deck will end up getting touched only because there's just not going to be any product that shakes things up before the next event. I do think the people that were playing the deck well before will continue to play the deck well, even with people trying to tech for it. Like I said, I don't think that there's like crazy tech, and it'll be the kind of thing where everyone's looking at Calvin's list, Wub's list, trying to tech against that, and it's going to be the people who are playing similar lists already that aren't exactly the same and adapting to the things that people are trying to adapt to now, that they're probably going to actually have the edge in the matchup anyways. I feel um it's just going to be one of those things where they're going to play some extra momentum source you weren't expecting, or they're going to start main decking uh the random cards that say if your rival would discard your momentum to get one back, right? Like, I think there's what all for one assessing all for one's motive is on chaos and order. Maybe the chaos Reiner list comes out and is like, oh, whoops, I actually have chaos tech and we're not doing blood sucking universe anymore. So your main board throw hate, right? Like stuff like that. So I think there could be a little evolution. It is a little exciting that for the most part, this is the same ish format as a previous regional. Um, but there isn't like a huge different shakeup in the characters. And I wish we kind of got a bit more of that. I know LCs are supposed to fill that void. I don't get to go to too many LCs. So, you guys tell me in the comments. Here's my engagement bait. Tell me in the comments below, are the LCs padding out your competitive spirit? Are you getting enough competitive reps in the same format because of LCs? Let me know. Maybe that's fulfilling that niche. But for me, I don't play enough events in general, anyways. The community events have pretty much dried up unless I'm running them, and we're halfway through the year, and excuse me, we're halfway through the year, and I'm not exactly sure when I can put together like another webcam warriors with prizing or whatever. I'm really hoping the casual confrontation takes off. I'm really hoping that, like, I know we already have like community game nights and stuff like that. There's already a weekly webcam thing, and so I'm really hoping we, running like an event on a weekend can sort of centralize more players, right? Once in a while. And that can just be like a way that people have fun playing universes, and that really takes off, and maybe that'll become the new thing. Maybe webcam tournaments with a bunch of prizing like isn't what the community really needs. But we're just in the experimental phase, right? We're just checking things out. But yeah, so I'm excited for Vegas. But I am reserved. The format is pretty tough to feel like you get to relax in, which maybe that's just been true for like a full year now. I just remember, I don't know, Critical Role, it felt like my decks could be focused on things other than speed and or damage, and the way that you could interact with specific decks was different. Now the answers are kind of blatant. You kind of just got Bachelor Rise for all foundations. And the way to interact with Bachelor Rise is typically off of a foundation. So like you get into like these weird scenarios, um, and it's not so much. See, I really like it when, and it's tough design. It's a terribly difficult design goal. But I really like it when you've got an open ended tool and you've got to choose where it can go. I like Driven by Retribution, right, for the Reiner matchup, where um, typically you could probably say, oh well, I could target the backup or the asset, or now the power token. But I think if there is a power token, you just always have to hit that one because the assets can be built, you know, immediately on their turn, or even when blocking. And the backups you can take out in other ways, right? So like, I like it when Driven by Retribution is a tool I can use for different things in different matchups. And typically, right now, blanket answers are being used for like the same few things. Generally, just like a big reset or a breaker. Like Dark Ward versus Breaker versus Bachelor Rise is like a very common cycle through multiple decks. Like the Reiner deck does a lot of breaker. All the ally decks are building Shobijin's Message. There's a lot of breaker. A lot of whether or not you can get anything done turn two is based on whether or not your rival drew their sources of breaker by now. So there's just a lot of that. There's a lot of check hacking in general. So there's a lot of the same kind of feel throughout the symbols. A lot of the staples have been kind of cemented. It feels like there's a lot of blood sucking thunder barrage, walk the dog across multiple symbols. A lot of people have figured out tension is really good. There's tension in a lot of decks, and so centralizing answers around tension is probably going to be more popular. Momentum hate, like I said, in general. So I'm not I'm not the most stoked about this format. It almost, as someone who generally enjoys control styles, it feels like now there's so much like easy access to control, and it's always been the one thing about control universes is it's very difficult to make defensive control because generally what ends up happening is good control effects get utilized by decks that have great offenses, like the Godzillas of the world running incredible display. Uh and pass through walls, both actually. Titan Cliff building pass through walls was not like a defensive control structure, right? So it's very tough when they print good control abilities. Those still are generally accessible by the decks that are saying here's +4 damage on everything. So it ends up being like aggro control, like having a legitimate offense and being able to pick apart your rival's defense goes hand in hand with having like good control defensive abilities. The Team Doctor Chigakis and the Bachelor Rives of the world are sealing, resets offensively and defensively. They're canceling things like Roman cancels, on defense just as much as they are, or the Roman cancel being used on defense, right? Just as much as they are from preventing your opponent from using a repeatable stun source. Like, don't do this. So, I dare say there might be a little too much control in the format, if only because it's making playing defense once again. And maybe this has just been the way it's been for too long now. We'll never, ever, ever actually escape it because people gotta die. But it feels like defense now is you gotta put every card in your stage as a defensive threat, like the Mothra decks do, and just say, okay, I have actually all 8 pieces are worth flipping or interacting with. All 8 pieces of this stage, every single card. Having cards that play both ways or having a mix of offensive and defensive foundations feels pretty rough because you'll get one defensive foundation out and there's no shot you're using it. There's just no shot that the decks out there right now are not either overwhelming you with like something like Anguirus accruing tokens or Nagoriyuki gonna target committed or something like that. So I've recently run into a lot of decks playing Loss of Consciousness. Loss of Consciousness is like a great bait for Batra arrives because if Batra can cancel the Loss of Consciousness, it's gonna seal it. But why would you do that? Because you're just gonna commit yourself, right? Like it's not really getting anything from that. So like Loss of Consciousness is like coming back, and I can't fucking stand that card. I can't stand just getting randomly sealed on my shit because someone flipped an inspiring song or was a face down card put there by a secret mouse Cthulhu. Like I cannot stand getting multiple Loss of Consciousness hit to me on the first attack while I'm trying to gather the information to figure out how seriously I need to take this turn and like evaluate what resources I have for the whole turn. They're all just fucking gone. Like, so if Loss of Consciousness becomes like a premier like meta threat because of the way that we're playing, because of the high control that we need to counteract, we might have gone too far. So I don't know. I am excited for Vegas, so I'm excited to play again. Um, I I really just want to find a deck that I won't hate playing all day. I'll probably play Reiner for teams if I had to guess right now, just because I always just try to play like whatever I think the best generic control deck is for teams. Because in the teams format, you can kind of decipher which of the three decks are like the best at being like the like I started playing with Dimitri, so they're called the Dimitri killer, and then you had like the Earth symbol killers because Earth symbol was like the I cancel everything symbol for 2020 for some reason. Overly people were like I have a deck that kills overly dramatic, like whatever. Um, so yeah, it's cool to play like the hard control there because you can kind of you can get paired into like that more mid-rangey deck that's gonna let you set up and it's gonna have like one or two chances to be the aggressive deck, and it usually feels like a pretty free win. What normally ends up happening to me though is I end up losing the dice roll and people just pair like a mirror match or they just pair like the same level of control into me and they're like, "Yeah, you guys can fight over it for an hour," and that's not great. But I think I've only ever lost one of those pairings, and I don't even know if that would really count as like the control mirror so much as it was a Shinnok. They didn't let me cancel anything, so I don't know. Anyways, I always have fun with teams. I'm looking forward to that the most, and then maybe if I play the Reiner deck all day and it's just like the easiest wins in the world, maybe I'll play Reiner for singles. But I don't know. I usually end up waffling on trying to play something I really like, and then at the last minute I pivot to something that's tried and true because I just couldn't find something that felt good, both something I like to play and also like Hanji was probably the closest, where it was like I just like this character and I kind of like the play style of the character, but I really liked the play style without Titan Pile. Titan Pile made it feel like you had to take some weird risks, but I also felt like Titan Pile was correct for the equipment heist Devil Jin meta. Like, I was testing the deck and it felt fine without Titan Pile, and then I added it into the deck, and all of a sudden my win percentage against Deku's on turn two and against Devil Jins and even against Godzilla's like just kind of went up a bit. So, the disrespectful Godzillas that go second and don't have any momentum to help them block a 7 high move for 24 or whatever. Like it was just a big matchup deal. So, hopefully I'll find something I really enjoy and isn't just Reiner or Mothra. And Rodan looks pretty good too right now. Like Rodan and Mothra look pretty similar. I like the tools Rodan gets, but I also really like the E commit on Mothra. But I don't know what I'm gonna play, but we should get into the My Hero Academia cards. I'm very happy for all my Hero Academia fans who got some closure because I really didn't think we were gonna get this throughout 2025. I really didn't know if we were gonna get like a final My Hero product or not. So I'm happy for you guys. Armored All Might is pretty crazy. I don't know if I'm sold on this whole he gets 1/3 to everything. I can imagine you're gonna play almost exclusively good symbol attacks, though. It seems like, I don't know. I could maybe see putting a Hunter's Ally in there, and just giving a Hunter's Ally 2 damage because you got the Earth symbol, stuff like that. A lot of the vestiges are ally, so I could see like splashing 1 or 2 non good symbol attacks, but uh good stats. Sacrifice a foundation. You're probably always going to be able to sacrifice the armor card to draw 2 because of the fact that you can build it for free. So once we see all the armor cards, it'll be easier to evaluate this character. The armor cards come in ready, which is kind of nuts. And he does have a bug bite symbol. So I think this character will be very, very, very good. But I think he will be very, very good in the sense that, like, all of his cards just happen to line up. I don't think there'll be a lot of different ways to play him. I think somebody will like crack the code on like this is the best way to get armored allied vestiges into play, and we play the good ones that happen to line up with our character, and the deck is pretty tight knit from there. Good symbols to have too, with good and earth right now. So I do expect a lot of people to play this dude just because you get to draw a lot of cards. You get to draw on both turns. Um, and you get to not be a 5-hander like Mikasa. And I think the armor cards will probably end up being pretty busted. We got the new Deku. He still has the 1A, which is cool. He's got your deck may include vestige foundations regardless of symbols, which I guess is better than just giving him every attuned symbol in the world. And a lot of the vestige issues were like they didn't all share symbols, so you could play them all together. Now you can. Now you'll definitely have enough vestiges. So you get 2 speed or -2 speed, and then once you've built 6 or more vestige foundations, you get 3 or -3. Much better than Kai Kisuke. Kind of insulting that Kai gets like +1 or -1, and then your rival has to have 6 committed. Pretty fucked up. But the response commit after you block with a foundation card, build it, draw 1 card. Also, just power creeping Nejire too, which is a character that I have always really liked the idea of. I love Desperate Plea. I love Manly Passionate Guy. I like Terry Bogard. This also has a bug bite symbol, so I'm pretty excited to try this guy out. I don't know how restrictive the vestige stuff will be. I think that might be the killer for me, is just because I'm not the biggest fan of the existing vestige cards. But again, similar to All Might, once we see what all they have access to, if the deck is like jam 30 vestiges and they're all good enough, I could see myself enjoying playing this character. But at the same time, if the only things I'm ever blocking with are the same vestige foundations, and then building those same vestige foundations, I might get tired of playing the deck pretty quick. I don't know. He's got some great fucking symbols though. All is one of my favorite symbols that I don't play that much. Like a lot of characters I've loved have had the all symbol. Templar has the all symbol. And it's like the symbol I play the least with it, or that like I make the least good decks with at least. So I'm excited to have like an all symbol character I like to play, but at the same time we've got air, good, life, sacred guardian symbols. Um, and those are the symbols I think actually play the most are like air and life. And life is the one I've taken to tournaments the most, like throughout MHA. So I'll be excited to see if this character sparks joy or not. 630 is a little much, but he's a blocking character, so I kind of get it. And then all for one Demon Lord, 634 is what I'm talking about. 632, 30, and then the 34 comes out. Villain, of course. You may try to play 1 card from your momentum as your next card this turn. If you play a card this way, remove it when it leaves the card pool. I wonder what's the broken combo here. Someone in the comments tell me why it has to be removed when it leaves the card pool. What was the loop? Response once per turn, Tenacious. After an attack deals 5 or more damage, right? This character, you may add 1 card from your discard pile to your momentum. So this is a pretty obvious like gameplay style of, you play an attack, you commit the character, you deal the damage, you get to load your next attack. You get to reload your attack. You are combining all the quirks into your momentum. I think it's pretty cool. it's a little like, it's very much like the deck seems to have like this obvious path of how you're supposed to play it. But I'm excited to see what people do with it because the idea that you're only ever going to be playing stuff from your momentum doesn't sound that realistic. You have to deal the damage to be able to do it anyways. So there's, the obvious mini game of universes of attacking and blocking is already the game that you're going to play with him anyways. So I'm kind of excited. I hope we see some, played from removed that are more exciting than the overhaul deck. So far, the biggest issue with like play this card from somewhere else, uh, the issues have been that they were either TMNT cards, which were just kind of, low impact in general. Um, they were just, I guess, designed a little too safe, a little too like one dimensional, I guess I would put it. And then before that it was like overhaul cards from the starter deck. So most of them can't be crazy. And you ended up really just having maximum overhaul. I think is the only one that ever really mattered if you played it from somewhere else. There's some gimmick decks. There was bullet punches. Oh, bullet punches too, which I don't know if I think bullet punches topped like one or two events, but not wasn't like a crazy game changing attack. So yeah, I would love to see something more like a bullet punches coming up here, but this character just seems like totally busted. Like he's not gonna fuck up a backswing if you leave yourself open, right? He's not gonna, as long as he has an attack in momentum, he's gonna generate three attacks, right? Like you hit your opponent, you commit, you ready, you commit, and then you only get to load up the attack the once per turn, but he does have two rando gun symbols. And if you deal the damage, you get to put the rando gun. I'm just saying the rando gun might actually always be available if you connect. You don't need to play the rando gun unless you do the response, right? So I don't know. I think this character could be really cool, but he's like a weird airship kind of game plan where it's just kind of like where the turn's going. Tomura, all for one successor, 633. Remove up to two cards from your hand. You can try to play one as your next card this turn. So not just as a form, you can block with these. Your attack gets one speed, and if it deals damage, you draw a card for each card removed this way. So again, kind of like an obvious game plan of I am going to set this card aside. I am going to play it. Um, and then if I deal damage, I get to keep refilling. Right? The same way you're going to refill your momentum when you deal damage here, you're going to refill your hand when you deal damage with Tomura. And then after you partially block an attack, your block gains Breaker 1. They've had a few of these abilities. I think they had, was it Osui, the five hander, has like if you play a higher low block, your block gets Breaker 1. And I think there's one other character, but they always make it like really specific because in the past, characters that give Breaker 1 to everything have been really, really good. And I think they're trying to play it a little safe here, but depending on what block tricks you have, man, I mean, the +1 mid breakers are like something you're partially blocking with all the time, anyways. So he'll be a little sad that analytical observation symbols are popular, but I think this character could be a lot of fun. I think people, again, it really depends on if the what I used to call the Hasaikai, the Chisakai attacks, Chi Hasaikai. How are you supposed to say it? I feel like you're supposed to say it like Chisakai, like really fast. I don't know. I might have just watched too much anime, but I think that if they have like really cool, play from remove effects similar to a maximum overhaul, I think these characters are going to be very popular. I think if they give us a lot of if you played this attack from somewhere other than your hand, you get +2 speed. I don't think we're going to be that stoked. But what's really important about this is Tomura's is not once per turn, and really his play, all for one's play from somewhere other than your hand is also not once per turn. And that was the other issue I had with a lot of the Chisakais. Is aside from Shindemoto had twice per turn. And I believe everyone else's play an extra card was once per turn. Which, granted, I get why you wouldn't want to give them like bonus hand size, but like I don't know. I felt like Rikia Katsukami could have just had multiple enhances per turn. But yeah, basically you only got to do it once per turn anyways. And like even at the end of their lifespan, like Rando Gun did not like revive that in a meaningful way. So I don't know. Good and Evil reprint. This is pretty crazy. It's no I guess not a secret, but it's no surprise to me that right after Good and Evil rotated, or not Good and Evil, sorry, Incredible Display rotated, we got essentially the same response reprinted. R commit, spend a momentum after everyone plays a non-character response, cancel it. That's probably something that's gonna be like in the game since it was introduced. The fact that they introduced it means I don't think we're gonna be away from it. We're just changing what symbols get to do it. Put it on a four check a little more fair. I don't think the fact that it gets -1 speed and -1 damage has always been super funny to me. This has always just been like the most random ass enhance, like old ass retro cards. People like focus on the good ones, but there's like a ton of cards that have like one super cool playable ability and then like one just random ass ability. You're like, why does this have -1 damage? Okay, and then it'll become relevant in like 1 in 1,000 games. So, also not unique. That's pretty wild that it's not unique. I guess I actually don't remember off the top of my head if the original. I feel like it was. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong that the original was also not unique, or that there was a reprint. No, okay, so there was a reprint that was not unique. So there was an original that was unique, and then God, the art on this is like crazy, dude. Look at her eyes. This is so like Deviant Art taught me to draw anime. I don't know. But yeah, the original was unique, and then they had a reprint where it's not. So we're keeping with that most recent printing. We're not Templaring it, where we're giving it the keyword back. So yeah, pretty excited for this. Good symbol is probably gonna be eaten really fucking good soon. But the evil symbol kind of needed something like this. The evil symbol needed a little pick me up too. So I expect good and evil to be the main focuses, of course, of this challenger deck. And I believe that they are going to be the symbols that obviously get the biggest glow ups here. And then we've got this article that has a little bit of a first look at some of the cards inside. And so this is what I was talking about, where we've got adaptive stabbing and appendage onslaught. Both are blitzes that just say if it was played from anywhere other than your hand, this one gets throw and your rival flips the foundation. And this one gets an additional an additional +1 to its stun rating. So a 2 mid for 6 stun 2 on a 4 diff is not bad, especially if your character gives speed. But the only characters I think that can really reliably play this from somewhere else right now are these two. And +1 speeds, 3 mid, 6 stun 2, that's solid. And the fact that it's not once per turn is a big deal. So, like, in my head, I read this and I think, oh, I'm going to waste my overhaul once per turn on stun 1, on +1 to a stun rating. Or I'll waste my overhaul once per turn on, a 3 mid 5 throw. And that's not the case. So I think that's really, really good for these cards. I still don't know if they're punching enough weight that you wouldn't just rather play a better 4 diff from your remove pile with no additional benefit. But I don't know, having a weird 4 diff throw seems kind of nice. But this is the one that we're really waiting for. It's combination salvo, 6 difficulty, 4 high 7. Huge callback to ultimate combination, was just recently rotated. Also a powerful attack, this time powerful 4. I think this is a really cool reference. It's like a really cool reference to the original ultimate combination, this time beefed up, which I think is very neat. The blitz, if you have 5 or more cards in your remove pile, it obviously makes this towards a specific style of deck, but it doesn't limit it to just Shigaraki and All for One, which is cool. Like Evil Gaigan can definitely get 5 cards removed pretty quick, and he can send this as a 9 high 9 before using powerful. Pretty cool, but the obvious appeal is after you play this attack's powerful ability, you get 1 attack card spent to pay the cost of that ability from your discard pile to your hand. So while Ultimate Combination was retrieving foundations to build into your stage to give you a big speed bonus, you're now adding an attack back, which is generally going to be a stronger ability, but having the Blitz lock the speed at only +3, whereas Ultimate Combination could get a scaling huge speed bonus. I think makes it a little less. It's a little less like, ooh, how do I turn this into like the most messed up attack ever, like ultimate combination with like Benimaru was supposed to be. However, I do think it's, going to be a lot more reliable. The condition is basically just play your character. And Powerful 4 obviously is a little bit better. So this is going to be an attack that you can like start your turns with and increase your consistency. And I think that that's a little different than Ultimate Combination, which typically was supposed to be the game ender. So I think this is very cool. I think it's very nice callback to Ultimate Combination. And I think that the decks that are going to be removing a bunch of cards would love to play a 4 high for, or well, I guess hopefully a 7 high, 7 high for 11 that drew you an attack. I think that that's gonna be huge. Um, then we have optimal form. This is a fuckers card. This is a messed up first form. Draw 1 card. Your rival may sacrifice 1 foundation to cancel this effect. There's gonna be times where you're supposed to do this, and I can't tell you when you're supposed to cancel this. I cannot tell you the games where you are supposed to sacrifice to cancel this, but get this out early game and just become the fake 7 hand size of your dreams, and it's gonna be on your rival to to try to decipher when they should actually sacrifice that committed face down just to stop you from drawing, and then you build out and they just blew it up for nothing, right? This also obviously like Oxygen Destroyer doesn't care how the foundations or how the cards got destroyed. So this could be like big for people who want to play Oxygen Destroyer. I know that one's not really showing up in a huge way just yet, but you can like trick your opponent into sacrificing their own stuff. But the response tenacious here is really the crazy part. After an attack is played, it gets -1 speed. It's only playable while it's committed, but the fact that it's playable while committed, means that you will have just an ungodly amount of defensive reach to the point where this card's not unique. And even though it has a first form on it, which typically makes a card feel pretty unique, I think you can get away with playing like 4 of these in like an ultra defensive deck on evil, on void, or on death, which is pretty insane to think about. So look for this one to show up just because I think the first form is like super free. It's 1 less resource to play attacks, which I think is fair because you're trying to draw a card. And it has like its own mini game that I think people are gonna fail. I think people are gonna sacrifice a ready foundation when they're scared and they didn't need to, or they're gonna sacrifice a foundation at a moment where you weren't trying to be aggressive anyways. And likewise, people are probably not gonna cancel this that often. They're probably not gonna build 4 foundations going second and want to sacrifice a ready one to stop you from drawing. So, I feel like the turn 1 advantage on this card is like huge. Then we've got Stealing Quirks. This is my favorite card so far. If you remember Capture Evil Doers was a fucked up card. It was an action where you would remove a rival momentum from the game, which it like mattered that stuff was being removed and not discarded at times. And then if they did remove if they did have a momentum to remove, you would get a momentum. And this is kind of like that. This is first enhanced flip. The next time you play a keyword ability during this attack, you can have your rival spend 1 momentum as though you were spending it. So in the same way that Capture Evildoers was like, you lose a momentum, I get one. This is you lose a momentum and I get the benefit for it. So you can't sit on it. You can't like hold it for like a roaming cancel or whatever. But you do get to dunk on your opponent with it, which I think is super, super cool. I do think it's kind of funny that this is like sort of a nombo with combination salvo. Uh, like you make your rival spend an attack for the 4 damage. You don't get it back, which unfortunate, but you spend a momentum, they spend a momentum, you get 8 damage. It's all a good time. So yeah, Stealing Quirks is exactly my kind of shit. I think this card is super cool. I think making it a first enhance is a little tough, but probably fair. Again, I don't know what they were like specifically testing where it was like, oh man, if you get to like force your opponent to have a momentum and then make them spend it or something. I don't know, but I love stuff like this. I think this is a great card to like build partially through a turn and throw your opponent off, which is probably why it's a first enhance. if I had to guess, it's because there's some combination where you could play an attack that has, powerful whatever, and your opponent plays around it as if you don't have momentum, and then all of a sudden you build in a stealing quirks, and you're like, psych, actually, I'm using your momentum. Something like that. That's what I'd have to imagine would be like the real reason to make it first enhanced. That and or so you can't do it multiple times and be like, okay, well, I'm going to EX with your momentum. Now I'm going to powerful with your momentum, something like that. I do think you can echo with this, right? Because echo, no, echoes after it resolves. The response for echo is after it resolves, you get to play it again. So I don't think this works with echo. Somebody who's a better rules junkie than me can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is echo is not during this attack, so it wouldn't work with echo, unfortunately. But very cool stuff, very flavorful, right? For the villains in question. So very very cool card here. And then this is my least favorite card as a commentator: Cellophane Sugarman Shoot Style Smash. I encourage everyone to put this in their deck for events I'm not casting, just to make the caster say Cellophane Sugarman Shoot Style Smash as many times as possible. It's a pretty generic attack if you have less momentum than your rival to 6 mid 5. It's a little simple, but it's about the right stat line you would need to even consider a 4 diff that all it does is bump its own stats. I typically don't like cards like that. You don't see them get played very often. It usually has to be something messed up like a Thunder Spear Barrage, or it has to be giving itself like speed and damage or something, like there's just not too many attacks that are just giving themselves a static bonus that you see get played. And then Gear Shift, a Deflect Vestige, Card Pool ability. Flip this attack gets +2 or -2 speed. This one's kind of interesting. It might actually let like Midoriya on the move transform faster. People always forget that guy can commit 0 foundations to transform if you end up with 3 face downs in your pool. So that's something to consider, I guess. But usually that costs you hand size to do. So I don't know. Either way, this one's a very cool shaped card. I think it's a very interesting question to ask. You deflect -2 damage, and then you can flip it for -2 speed. So it's like the deflect didn't count towards your progressive at all, at least for one attack, and even makes it one easier to block. So I think a card shaped like this is really sick, but I do think it's a tough ask for people to build this into their stage, right? And this is a card that like Midoriya can respond commit to build into his stage, but he probably doesn't want to. So it's a little iffy, giving you questions you wanna answer. But evoking the wielders, this one's nuts. This is Sugar Rush power up on a foundation. I've asked many times, what will it take for me to play an E commit that just gives stats? And while you do have to have 3 differently named Vestige foundations in your stage, it doesn't seem very difficult for the Midoriya deck, and it doesn't seem very difficult for Hunter's Ally decks. And it might not even be that difficult. I don't know. I haven't seen any armor. There's armor vestige foundations, right? For All Might? I don't know. It's probably not that hard for All Might either. So, All Might he gets like 1/3, and then you get 2/4. So it's like a +3, +7 for committing 1 foundation. That's pretty good. It's a whole nother attack, really. That's like a whole extra 5 diff of stats. So yeah, I think this one will be a big part of what makes the deck successful, because if you're forced to play like a bazillion vestiges, I want vestiges at +1 mid blocks I can build on my rival's turn, and all of a sudden my damage output is significantly increased. The last one is Incoming Smash Kick. This one's very funny because very recently I actually found myself searching for characters that can play zero gravity tag. I think it is, yeah. Zero gravity tag is, and this was like pre Reiner nerf, or pre Titan of Terror nerf. But assuming that I have to kill Reiner like turn 2 or whatever, I was thinking like discard a card for +2 to a check on a kill turn. Absolutely worth it. Unfortunately, this card is like a 3 mid 4 though, and I would need a 1A student that's like really putting numbers on stuff, and that doesn't really exist. Um, so I wasn't I wasn't like super excited for it, or at least I didn't think I would really find a home for it. Important to note, this Midoriya. Whoops, where's my window here? This Midoriya is a 1A character. Midoriya on the Move is not a 1A character. So it did cross my mind that I could like fully commit out and then play this on a 4 and I can't fail to check by discarding a card if Midoriya on the Move was a 1A character, but so anyways, I was looking at this recently and I thought, man, this would be a card I'd probably be willing to run in like a character that gives 2/2 to everything. And lo and behold, like literally 24 hours later, I saw the previews for this card and I'm like, huh, this even works while blocking, you know? So this is only when you play this attack, but this even works when you block with it. So I'm a little excited for this one. Again, the other ability here to commit a foundation, get +2 damage, and your rival commits one is a little costly, but you stun one, +2 damage, 3 mid for 6 stun one. Kind of like it's a 5 diff that you checked a 4 on. I don't know. But you can play it late anyways. So like this card is like better than it looks, but this card is probably the better card, right? So I'm excited to try this one out. Discarding a card to be able to continue a string does not seem like a big deal right now. Fighting over breakers and stuff does feel like a big deal right now. So, yeah, I think that this is going to be an underrated gem. I just, there's not every deck's going to be able to afford the discard cost, and you probably don't want to be doing it on like a poke turn. You probably only want to be doing it when you're going all in, which I think kind of fits Midoriya's theme, right? That's kind of his thing in most anime protagonists is that they're putting it all into this one attack, everything they've got the 100% effort, whatever it is. So, yeah, I don't know. Pretty interesting card to have pop up right after I looked at what is a much rougher ask to be a 1A character specifically. But if it ends up being like super playable in this Midoriya anyways, that would be super funny to me. So, yeah, I think this one's neat. I think it'll probably go underrated, but I don't know if there will be characters who can give this enough stats to make it meta viable, because it is at the end of the day just a 3 high for 4 that you played a little bit easier. So either way, I'm pretty excited for it. That's my take on the cards that have been shown off before. I'm really excited to see what All Might's ultra rare attack from this deck, or I guess it could be Deku's, I don't know, but I imagine it's the ultra rare attacks are going to be all for one and All Might, and I'm excited to see what they do because they've had quite a bit of time to cook on this, at least as far as My Hero fans are concerned, and it looks like they're trying to do something really nice. It looks like they're trying to do something really cool with these decks and make these characters feel pretty special, even if they're not like Rodan and Godzilla King of the Monsters out the box. But there's definitely potential for Mr. +1/+3 to to feel pretty Godzilla like at the end of the day. So anyways, I hope to see you guys at the Vegas Regional. I hope to see you guys at the warm-up tournament and especially at the casual confrontation. I'll hopefully remember to include the link in the comments for this down below. You can sign up now on the UGN. You can find the link in my Discord. You can just ask me for it on Discord and I'll probably give it to you, even if it's begrudgingly because you woke me up in the middle of the night. But I hope to see you guys soon, and hopefully we can just play some more universes.